Fire, the warmth that unites us, that binds us, that gives us strength. But the day we manage to harness it will be the day we open a chest of untold secrets and immortality. For all things good or bad are born out of fire, but only the great souls may leave this form with their warmth intact. Rest all will freeze in an eternity of loneliness and despair. Hello everyone, this is the Holy Hermit and welcome to another video of mine. Today we'll be looking at a build for Wizard in Diablo 3. A new build this time after the coming of patch 1.0.7. But as always, we'll start off by looking at my armor and weapons. Nothing special this time guys, I don't have any special gear, any fancy gear. It's not my monk this time, but here it is, me showing you the build. To sum it all up, I do have a decent amount of attack speed and some amount of critical hit chance. Nothing extraordinary here, something that works. But more importantly, here's the build for you. Very strange, as I always say, strange indeed when you look at the build. It's centered on doing fire damage, something a witch doctor is normally good at, but here we are, all these skills, have a look at them and you'll realize it's something strange, is it not? But I'll show you how this build works, show you how it works in the game that is. But before that, I'll quite simply tell you a little bit about it. It's a medium range kiting build. You deal damage by running around in circles. I have no life regen or life steal, or even life on hit, maybe a measly amount of life regen I believe, but nothing significant to make much of a difference. So the skills you would look at are all based on fire as I said. Shock Pulse has the ability to launch firebolts, dealing lots of damage, but it is fire in its own principle. Meteor also has a meteor shower. Rather than one big meteor, we have a volley of these coming down, dealing a significant amount of damage. Hydra, most people would go for an arcane Hydra, lightning, or even venom like the good old days. Not mammoth Hydra, but I do use it and I use it effectively in this game. The passives I use in this build, one of them that is, also helps me to gain more damage when I'm using fire skills. But the defense of this build comes from other skills as well. It's not all fire based, but the offensive bit certainly is. Diamond Skim with Prism allows me to use less arcane power when I'm using the abilities, any of them that is. Times that with my Storm Armor with 3 arcane power reduction, I have a hefty 10-point reduction which is very useful when I'm spamming skills. When people do get close to me, I have slow time with Time Shell. They get slowed down to about 80%. These are mainly the abilities you can see, but I'll explain them in more detail now as you see me playing in the game. When I encounter a big group, the first task would always be to have my Storm Armor on. That's something you can take it for granted. It's almost always on. There is no harm in having it on, right? But the second bit I do when I encounter a big group is to have the slow time active. I'll stand in the middle of it with my Prism on. Now, I will shock them if they get close, but I will hit them, I will kite them with my Meteor. I will also plant a Hydra further in advance when I'm approaching a group, allowing me to deal more damage. If it's a normal mob, I can easily dispatch them by using my Meteor and Hydra as you see in the video, but if I encounter an elite, all I quite simply do, especially on higher monster power, is circle around my slow time. I'm not going back to where I start, but I do play around the slow time bubble. I have the CM build, almost like a CM build by using critical mass, where every time I'm hitting them with a crit, my abilities have a cooldown reduced by 1 second. I use that primarily to have my Diamond Skin cooldown reduced and also for slow time. So that's why I also chose a primary Shock Pulse attack. I could have chosen something different, but I want to hit them with my main attack. The more time I hit them, the more chance of me critting them and me regaining my own cooldown reduction. That's the basic idea of the build. But when we look at the DPS that we are getting, we're getting that primarily from our main attack, our Shock Pulse, and by casting Meteor. Mammoth Hydra also plays a big part. Most people kinda ignore this skill. It has its good uses, especially if you play in a certain way. I always, as I said earlier, try to run around my Time Shell. I would cast it in the middle. I will always have a Hydra in it or outside, but I will make sure when Hydra attacks, I try to get elites and other people walking into that. Meteor's always on and dealing damage, and you also time that with your Mammoth Hydra. The DPS quite simply increases by a lot. That is the offsheet DPS. But it gets trickier when you go to higher monster power, and as I said earlier, I made a promise in a way that I'm not using any healing. I'm getting about 200 health per second, not a lot as I said, that's just from my shoulders and probably one more item, but I haven't got any skills that let me do that, nor do I have special gear for it. I didn't even spend too much money on the gear, so it's quite simply an average wizard, but it's doing very well as you can see right now on Monster Power 3, but I will move up to Monster Power 6, and the principal idea will still be the same. I play in a certain way around my time shell. It's a lot easier and chilled back gameplay as well. We're not playing the CM build. It's an amazing build, don't get me wrong, but it takes too much time when you have to press so many buttons all the time, and it can get quite complicated and tiring to say the least. But this build also works very well. Something that's based on fire damage, as I said. Mammoth Hydra dealing damage in lines, as you can see right now, in almost a streak. Meteor wiping out the normal mobs. When you do get elites, well, they also get taken down by the storm armor. But survival and kiting, they are two very important aspects of this build. I am kiting in a way, not kiting back and forth. No, that's a simple way. We all learned that and we all let that go because it was quite not very useful. But I do kite in a medium range. I always have fight in a certain medium range. I'm not going too far away, nor am I very close. My whole idea is to hit them with my shock pulse when I'm close to them, close enough so that my shock pulse can penetrate through my time shell and I can hit them at all time. Slow time is effective after all, is it not? That's the reason why I chose 80% reduction. I could have had my attack speed increase, that would have given me slightly more DPS, but as I always say, the game is about balance. It's not always about DPS. It's a good thing to have, don't get me wrong, but it's more fun and rewarding when you play a game like that. So here I am. I'm just showing you these clips back and forth from Monster Power 1 to Monster Power 3. So here we are looking at the gameplay, fighting a few elites, and this build, another good thing about it, it works consistently well up to Monster Power 6. If you can afford a decent one with some life leech or life on hit, you're very good to go. Give it a try on even higher monster power. That is quite simply the best bit about the build in my humble opinion. It's relying on no life regen, well, minimal life regen, and almost no life leech or life steal, yet you still do consistently well on these higher monster powers. My DPS right now is only 100k, but I do easily manage to dispatch these foes up to Monster Power 6. And I have saved the final secret for the last, the final secret of the build that is. I am also using Unstable Anomaly, as you might have noticed, something that allows me to heal myself and get a breathing room even when monsters do manage to hit me. I have slow time protecting me. I also have diamond skin, but when they don't work, monsters will get close to me and eventually hit me, but when they do, it will be at their own peril because they'll take lots of damage. If you have enough resources at your disposal, you can also put life regen, life on hit, or life steal on your wizard, and even do better on higher monster powers. Sky is the limit, as I always say with these builds, and the most beautiful thing about this is, of course, as always, it doesn't rely heavily on gear. You can always check my gear, of course. You can pause it and have a look, and you'll notice there's nothing special there. I don't even have a full Chantodo set. I do get decent amount of resistance and armor, the way I always like to play. For me, it's always about balance. But nonetheless, here's the build for you, and I'll round the whole video up for you. This video works on doing fire damage. It also works in a principle of kiting. You deal damage from a distance, not that far, almost at the right sweet spot really, and it works up to Monster Power 6. Give it a go. With all the new ideals and principles out there, there is no one right way. There never is, but here's one way for you. Following the warmth, following the fire. This has been the Holy Hermit for you. I hope you all have a nice day ahead. Thanks ever so much for listening and subscribing. Bye.